Chapter 4 of The World's Worst Children by David Walliams, narrated by me. Chapter 4, Miss Petula Perpetual Motion. This is the story of a girl who could not sit still. Miss Petula Perpetual Motion was forever in motion, whether she was in a lesson, in church, or even playing musical statues. Some part of her would always be moving. It might be her foot, or her arm, or even her entire body. It would start with a little wiggle, then become a waggle, before turning into a jiggle, progressing into a joggle. Next, she would be cartwheeling across the room, creating pandemonium wherever she went. Petula was even in motion as she slept. Sometimes the other girls at her posh boarding school, Modesty Palace, would hear a noise in the dead of night. They would peek out from under their bed covers and see Petula ballet dancing across the dormitory with her eyes closed. One day, Petula's rather grand headmistress announced that the girls of Modesty Palace were to go on an awfully special trip. "Quiet, girls," ordered the lady as she stood on stage at the assembly. Most prigs of grey hair were styled in the magnificent bonfire hairdo, and a part of half-moon spectacles hung from her neck on a gold chain, if she was about to tell someone off, which was often. The spectacles would be lifted up to her eyes and she could stare at the victim down and give them the willies. "Now, girls, we are going to take a school trip to somewhere I, your beloved headmistress, have chosen myself. We're going to visit my favourite porcelain museum. Needless to say, I expect you to be on your best, absolute best behaviour. I don't want any mishaps." Suddenly, all eyes were on Petula. "Oh no," thought the good girl sitting in the front row. "Ah, yes," thought the bad girl sitting in the back row. To make matters worse or better, depending on whether you're a good or bad girl, Petula was bouncing up and down on her seat, like it was a space hopper. Boing, boing, boing. "Porcelain had been a personal passion of mine," continued the headmistress. "He loved making lengthy speeches. Now I, your beloved headmistress, want to share that passion with you. This museum is the best in Europe. Every single piece on display is a priceless antique. There shall be no accidents. Do I make myself clear?" There was a faint murmur from the pupils. "I said, do I make myself clear?" she bellowed. "Yes, headmistress," chimed the girls in unison. "Excellent. Now, Miss Petula Perpetual Motion, I need to see you in my study right away." The girl glowed as red as a tomato driving a fire engine. What has she done now? Surely the time when she accidentally spun backwards into the science block had been put behind her. Yes, the experiment taking place that day went badly wrong. Yes, there was still a huge hole in the floor where the acid burned through it, but Petula swore it was an accident. Yes, her triple jump on sports day became an octuple jump, taking in 8 different moves, and resulted in Petula karate kicking the local mayor, sending him tumbling off the winner's podium. But again, the girl insisted it was an accident. And yes, of course, who could forget the time at the school Christmas carol concert where Petula couldn't stand still in church, cartwheeled up and down the aisle, and sent the vicar flying headfirst into the choir? But these were all accidents. It wasn't her fault. She couldn't sit still. Petula even had a note from her mother to prove it. "To whom it may concern, to my darling daughter, Miss Petula Perpetual Motion, cannot stay still for more than a second. It's not her fault. She must not be punished in any way if she causes damage to property, buildings, peoples, or animals. To take great care of my darling daughter. Yours truthfully, Petula's mother." With some trepidation, the girl knocked on the door of the headmistress's study. "Knock, knock, knock." "Come," barked the headmistress from inside. "Knock, knock, 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 knock." Petula's hand did not stop knocking. "I said, come," came an angry-sounding voice. Still, Petula could not stop her hand from knocking. Knock, 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 knock. Oh, for goodness sake, roared the headmistress. Miss Prig yanked open the door and Petula knock, knock, knocked the old lady and slap-banged her on the nose. Boink! Ow! Sorry, Miss Prig, replied the girl with a hint of smile. It was amusing to see the lady fuming. Come into my study this instant, ordered the headmistress. Petula forward rolled into the room, which Miss Prig always kept spotless. In fact, an old cleaner was in there at the moment, busily pointing some school trophies on the table. You, out! Ordered the headmistress. Miss Prig was curt to anyone she considered below her. The cleaner picked up her dusters and shuffled towards the door. Quickly! Shouted Miss Prig, as the poor old lady picked up her pace until the last she disappeared. Now, take a seat, Miss Petula Perpetual motion, said the headmistress. Petula did do that. She took a seat and danced around the study with it. I meant to sit down, barked Miss Prig. The girl whisked and whirled into this chair to the floor and slowly lowered herself onto it. As soon as her bottom touched the chair, she felt an overwhelming urge to bounce up and down on it. So she did. Be still, demanded Miss Prig. But Petula continued to bounce up and down and up and down and up and down, the chair squeaking along the rhythmically with her bounces. Bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak. Now, needless to say, I want you on your absolute best behaviour during the school trip. Of course, Miss Prig. I would, as if I would be doing anything else. The headmistress was not convinced. She lifted her half-moon spectacles up to the girl and studied the girl. The truth is, you have left a trail of destruction behind you wherever you've been at Modesty Place, which is the finest girls' boarding school in the country. I hardly need to remind you of the incident in the school dining hall yesterday lunchtime. You began by juggling huge bowls of trifle. Before long, they were zooming through the air, heading straight for the teacher's table. At least it saved you all the bother of queuing for desserts, headmistress, replied the little girl, as if this was designed to stop Miss Prig from becoming further enraged. It failed miserably. I was covered from head to toe in trifle, boomed the headmistress, her face now boiling with fury, her teeth on the verge of gnashing. Only this morning I found a piece of jelly in my ear. Did you eat it, miss? Inquired the girl politely. No, I did not eat it. Bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak. The noise was really distracting the headmistress now, but she pressed on. Then there was the time you caused chaos in art class. You jiggled and wiggled, and before we knew it, there was paint sprayed across the walls, windows and ceiling. And our art teacher, Miss Splurge, remarked that she actually liked the redecoration. The headmistress chose to ignore this smarty pants reply. And the time he managed to release all the lacrosse balls from the games cupboard. Miss Heft, your poor PE teacher, wobbled over and was carried off down the pitch of sea of them. I hope they do eventually find her, remarked Petula. I do too, bellowed the headmistress. Bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak, bounce, squeak. Miss Prig could not take it a moment longer. Will you be still? She ordered. Sorry, miss, she muttered the girl. For a moment, Petula was still. But the moment soon passed. There was a wobble, then a wibble, ending up in a huge wobble. The girl performed a dive roll onto the floor before finishing the acrobatics display with a handstand. Now, Miss Petula Perpetual motion, purred Miss Prig, with a new hint of menace in her voice. I need the trip to the Porcelain Museum to pass without incident or Modesty Place founded 1,000 years ago by a nun, no less, could become a lasting stock. Of course, miss, said the girl, who was upside down, now scuttling about the headmistress's office on her hands like a performing poodle. So, I have ordered Modesty Palace's science teacher, Professor Blink, to come up with a contraption to stop you causing any damage to the priceless antiques. Miss Petula Perpetual Motion did not like the sound of this at all. I'll be fine without it. Thank you, miss, she said, the girl's legs now doing scissor kicks. And as she spoke, her legs sent a pile of school reports flying off the headmistress's desk. They looked like a flock of seagulls taking flight. No, you will not, barked the headmistress. What is this contraption, miss? Oh, you'll see, said Miss Prigg ominously, desperately trying to pluck the sheet of paper from the air. Now, get out! With that, Petula cartwheeled out of the study, booting the newly polished trophies to the floor as she went. Crash, bang, wallop! The day of the school trip arrived, and Professor Blinks proudly wheeled her invention out on the science block and into the playground. There we are, headmistress, said the lady, still sporting her white lab coat and safety goggles, just as you asked. It's marvellous, Professor, replied Miss Prigg. It looked like a toy for a giant hamster. The science teacher had created a huge, round, see-through inflatable ball, large enough for someone to be placed inside. Of course, that someone was Miss Petula Perpetual Motion. I am proud to unveil my invention, announced the professor. I have named it the Bouncing Boom Boom Ball. It is destined to stop jiggling children all over the world from destroying everything in their paths. Oh, keep it brief, ordered the headmistress, who only liked the sound of her own voice. Yes, headmistress, replied the science teacher hurriedly. It is very simple. The child who cannot stay still is stuffed in there. She began indicating a small hatch in a ball. Then, when the child does fidget, the bouncing boom boom ball will simply bounce off any precious objects nearby, causing 0 damage. At least that was the idea. Splendid, said the headmistress. You may go. It was a long coach ride to the Porcelain Museum. Despite the driver's protestations, the headmistress insisted that Petula travel in the boot so she could not cause any damage on the way. As soon as they arrived, the headmistress stuffed Miss Petula Perpetual Motion into the bouncing boom boom ball. There she led her party of schoolgirls inside the museum. As Petula bounced along, bringing up the rear, despite her initial reluctance, once inside the bouncing boom boom ball, the girl began to enjoy it. A smile spread across her face. The museum was a treasure trove of all things porcelain. Porcelain dogs, porcelain cats, porcelain vases, porcelain candlestick holders, porcelain teapots, porcelain plates, porcelain. Every single object was an antique and worth a fortune. Now, girls, needless to say, there is absolutely no touching of any of the items in the display, announced the headmistress. I know most of you, your mammas and papas, are filthy rich since they sent you to Modesty Place, which I am proud to say is the most expensive school in the country. However, if you do touch anything, you cause it to break, you'll have to pay for it yourselves. Every last penny. Does your beloved headmistress make everything herself clear? The pupils muttered. I said, does your beloved headmistress make herself clear? Yes, miss, replied the girls. Now gather around. The girls huddled round a plinth. On it sat a large bowl with hundreds of tiny flowers hand-painted round the outside. Petula bounced up and down her giant ball to try and get a better look. Miss Prigg raised her half-moon spectacles to her eyes. This bowl was made in Paris. It once belonged to the last Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, and dates back to the 18th century. Suddenly, into her eagerness to see, Miss Petula Perpetual motion bounced so hard that the bouncing boom ball hit the ceiling. From there it rebounded, gathering speeds at an alarming rate. Now it was going wham! Up and down, up and down, up and down, shaking the room as it bounced, boom, boom, boom. The headmistress gasped in horror. Miss Petula Perpetual motion was bouncing dangerously close to the priceless porcelain pieces. As the bouncing boom ball bounced closer and closer, Miss Prigg stretched out her long, thin arms and gave it a shove. This caused the contraption to start rittering off the walls. All of the schoolgirls watched with their mouths open. It walloped off the priceless porcelain, without damaging it at all, and bounced back into the headmistress, sending her tumbling into a porcelain penguin posing on a plinth. "No!" she screamed. The penguin went flying through the air. It was an unusual sight, as penguins are, of course, flightless birds. But the wonder of seeing such a bird finally taking flight was soon brought to an abrupt halt. The porcelain penguin smashed against the wall. Crash! Shattering into hundreds of tiny pieces, as the schoolgirls gasped in horror and delight. "You will pay for that, perpetual motion," shouted the headmistress. "But I didn't touch the priceless porcelain, Miss Headmistress." "You did," reasoned the girl. Needless to say, this made Miss Prigg blaze with rage. She chased after Miss Petula Perpetual motion as the girl bounced off to the other side of the room. Boom, boom, boom! The headmistress raced towards the bouncing boom ball, this time with her arms and legs overstretched to top it. But as it bounced off the wall, it sent the lady flying backwards throughout the air once more. The first thing she hit was a porcelain statue of a swan. Thwack! The second thing was a life-sized porcelain statue of a ballerina. Smash! Bang! The third one she hit was a porcelain statue of a clown. Wallop! It wasn't one of those happy clowns, it was one of those sad clowns. Sadly, there isn't time to fully explore the clown's emotional state. That's because said clown, among with other objects flying through the air, was soon nothing more than a shower of porcelain scattering across the floor. Shatter! At this very moment, hearing all the commotion, the elderly museum director came dashing out of his office. He popped his monocle into place and surveyed the damage. Every single one of the museum's most priceless pieces of porcelain was in pieces. "What is the meaning of this?" he bellowed, waving one of his walking sticks aloft in fury. The headmistress wobbled to her feet, crunching porcelain gravel underfoot as she did so. Crunch, crunch, crunch. "I can explain," pleaded the lady. "Who touched the priceless, pleasing porcelain pieces?" demanded the museum director. "Well," the headmistress glanced over Miss Petula Perpetual motion, who, to her surprise, was now bouncing only very gently in a plastic ball. "Well, technically it was me, but—" "No buts!" shouted the museum director. "Lady, you will pay for every last piece." "No!" screamed the headmistress. The girl who couldn't keep still smirked. The museum's bill came to many millions. On a headmistress's salary, even at one of the most expensive schools in the country, it would have taken 1,000 years for Miss Prigg to pay for everything back. So she had to take on lots of other jobs at Modesty Palace. Despite being a very grand woman, the headmistress now had to be up at dawn every morning with a mop and bucket, cleaning the school corridors. At lunch, she would be dishing out soap in the dining hall, and after school most days, Miss Prigg could be seen up a ladder, cleaning wet leaves and dead pigeons from the guttering. And if there was one person guaranteed to kick over the headmistress's bucket, send the soup flying through the air, and trip over her ladder, was, of course, Miss Petula Perpetual motion. Some years later, it was Petula's very last day of Modesty Place. She was 18 years old now, and ready to somersault off into the world. That morning, the headmistress had been up at dawn unblocking the toilets, as she'd been called to the library to clear up some vomit after the librarian had come down with food poisoning. As Miss Prig angrily plonked down her mop and bucket, she spotted her nemesis, Petula, sitting in the corner of the library reading a book. The strange thing was the girl was sitting perfectly motionless, not moving at all. Miss Prig had hid behind some shelves of books and spied on her most hated pupil. Apart from turning a page every couple of minutes, Miss Petula Perpetual Motion did not move a muscle. After an hour of snooping, the headmistress leaped out from behind the shelves. "Aha!" exclaimed the lady. "Gotcha!" "Shh!" shushed Petula, her eyes indicating a sign of the wall on the library that said "Silence." But! The headmistress couldn't contain herself. "You can sit still if you want to." "Yes, I can," replied the girl. "I have always been able to do that." "But what about that letter from your mother?" "Oh, that silly old thing? I wrote that myself." 100 years of detention, bellowed Miss Prig. "I'd love to, I really would, but today is my very last day at Modesty Place, and for old time's sake, I'm going to cartwheel out. Farewell, headmistress." With that, Miss Petula Perpetual Motion leaped onto her hands and spun out of the library, sending every single book flying through the air. Thud, thud, thud. The headmistress was in the library until midnight, picking up all the books and putting them back to the shelves. Then she still had to mop up the vomit, so, Miss Petula Perpetual Motion really was one of the world's worst children. Wonderfully so. That's the end of this chapter, folks. If you enjoyed, please do not forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below which book I should read after this one. See you guys in the next chapter. Bye-bye.